This is the Crush Crowdfunding Podcast, the #1 place for people who want to launch on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. My name is Nalin, and I invite you to join me for tips, hacks, and insights to get you launched and fully funded. Hey everyone, welcome to another session of the Crush Crowdfunding Podcast. I'm really excited to have you here today and to really talk to you about crowdfunding and how you can absolutely crush your goal on Kickstarter and absolutely crush your goal on Indiegogo. Today, I'd love to really talk about organic marketing because a lot of people wonder about organic marketing and what it is, how to do it, and how to just make it work, okay? And so, the theme is going to be like organic marketing. So let's get started. So organic marketing. So what is organic marketing? A lot of people aren't even sure what organic marketing is or what it does. And so they don't really know how to enact it. So organic marketing is pretty much what I like to call just free traffic. It's pretty much free traffic. It is ways to grab people's attention and direct it to whatever you want it to be directed to through kind of different strategies and tactics depending on the actual platform itself. So for example, organic marketing through Google search is making sure that you have the right keywords for your blog and making sure that you're posting blogs at a really constant interval, making sure that you have all these, SEO, search engine optimization things optimized for your blog so that when people are doing searches on Google, all your blog, your article, whatever you're writing, whatever you want to kind of stand out, goes up towards the top of a Google search and people go towards your particular website, your particular article. And that's kind of organic marketing with, Google search, right? There's that platform. What I want to really focus on today is organic marketing with Facebook, because at this moment, I see Facebook as a huge opportunity if you are especially interested in just learning the ropes of organic marketing in general. And I'm kind of going to use myself as a case study here and kind of go behind the scenes of this new business that I created, just to kind of give you a glimpse of what organic marketing can do and give you a glimpse of what organic marketing is like on this particular platform. So on Facebook, organic marketing kind of happens when people are browsing and searching different people and profiles that they're in groups that they're interested in. What usually happens is that on Facebook, they've started to prioritize groups and people finding other people, discovering other people, talking about ideas that they're interested in with other people through Facebook groups. And there's been an explosion, a big explosion of Facebook groups throughout, Facebook's evolution and growth. And you can see that a lot of people who are on Facebook now are in these groups. They're in, like, for example, I'm in groups that's called like successful female entrepreneurs. I'm in a group called like Pacific Northwest hiking women or something. There's a lot of these groups that are very tailored towards specific people with specific interests. And people like me, like you, go into these groups and kind of join in on these conversations and get to know other people, make friends with other people, build those relationships with other people. And that's kind of the basis of organic marketing on Facebook itself, because a lot of the time people make friends with each other and they start clicking to each other's profiles and like kind of getting to know each other, scrolling through their feed, seeing what's happening, what they're doing, and kind of adding them and seeing what they're up to and just kind of like being snoopy in that way. Because let's be honest, everyone kind of snoops at each other online. That's kind of the basis of organic marketing on Facebook. What I wanted to talk about is kind of how you do it. Because a lot of people, they're like, okay, Nalin, I know I can spend a lot of money in advertising and Facebook ads and Instagram ads, and I can get these leads of people into my email list to build my email list in order to, get a big enough email list to push into my Indiegogo, to my Kickstarter campaign on launch day. But right now, I'm not sure how to do that if I don't have a big budget. Okay, if I don't have a big budget, I just want to raise like, $1,000, $5,000, like a really small amount of funds. And I just need like a few hundred people who really know and like the idea. And they're like, how do I do this without a budget? And I love this conversation about organic marketing because you can do this yourself just with the time you have, right? When in another conversation, I talk about how running a crowdfunding campaign, running a Kickstarter campaign, this like Indiegogo campaign is like being a project manager. It's like you have the scope that you want to hit, that goal you want to hit, and you either have to balance the time or the budget that you have to put into getting to this goal to meet the scope that you have set out for yourself. So if you have not a lot of budget, if you have a lot of time, then organic marketing works great for you. If you have a lot of budget and like zero time, then you probably want to go the route of paid ads and not organic marketing. So when it comes to organic marketing, like what happens, right? So I'm going to use myself as a case study because earlier this year, I decided to do a fun experiment. I realized that, I've been working with Crush Crowdfunding for a long time. I've been working with like hardware entrepreneurs. I've been working with a lot of apparel entrepreneurs. I've been working with a lot of fun ideas like apps and things like that for a long time now. And I realized that I was really interested in the game industry. I was really interested in what people are doing in tabletop because I love playing tabletop games. I love buying new tabletop games. I'm very interested in just the idea of games in general. And that's how my partner and I like met and kind of fell in love. And it was all through tabletop games, right? And so with that said, I was like, okay, well, there's a category of this for Kickstarter. So like might as well start talking about marketing for games because I, have a degree in marketing. I know crowdfunding and I love games. And there's not a lot of fresh information about marketing for board games in like the space itself right now that's concentrated in one location. So I just looked at it and was like, okay, let me try my hand at this. See if people want to hear more about marketing. See if people want to learn more about marketing for games for launching on Kickstarter. And so I went about and what I started off doing was I found different Facebook groups and I started looking into them and I was like, okay, here's a Facebook group about game design. Here's a Facebook group about people interested in board games in general. Here's a Facebook group about people interested in backing board games. So there's all these different groups and I kind of joined them and like looked around, saw what was happening, and I did it and started asking people, hey, would you want to hear like a podcast, a blog, or something just to talk about marketing for board games and to launch? And people said, yes, they're really interested. Yes. Something like this they'd love to hear, something like this they'd love to listen to, something like this they'd be really interested in and kind of like looking at. And so I was like, okay, well, there's some interest for this. And so what I did was I started creating kind of different ways to capture interest, right? Different ways to capture interest for this particular little niche that I found. And so what I did was I went to my Facebook profile and I updated the Facebook cover photo. I updated the Facebook like featured image on the profile itself and said, hey, if you're interested in board game marketing, I have this new group that just talks specifically about board game marketing. And there's a link to it. And then there's like an arrow that links to it. People get pointed to it and you can click on the Facebook cover photo and it directs people to that particular group on Facebook that is about marketing for board games to launch on Kickstarter. And from there, what happens is I create a Facebook group that is private but visible. So it's searchable in the grand scheme of Facebook. And I added a question, right? I added a few questions like, how did you find about the group? What are you interested in learning about? And the last thing was, if you want this little lead magnet that I created, these 10 hacks from the biggest crowdfunding game launches on Kickstarter, if you want just a breakdown of this, let me know your email and I will send it to you. And that was the whole flow. That's what I did. I was like, okay, I need to figure out people's information. I have to kind of get their attention. I have to capture their attention some way. And I have to somehow like grab their email, right? And so I was like, okay, cool. This is what I'm going to do. All right, let's do it. And so what I ended up doing from there right? After all this was ready, I set up MailChimp in the back end. There was like an automated email to go out. So like after all this was done, what I ended up doing was I started just kind of posting different marketing tips in these various groups that already told me, yeah, we're interested in learning these things about marketing for games. And so I was like, okay, cool. So I'll start posting these marketing tips in these groups. And then what happened was a lot of people just started commenting on the actual post itself that I posted. A lot of people started talking underneath the groups, a lot of people underneath the post, a lot of people started liking it, a lot of people started sharing it, a lot of people started asking questions underneath it. A lot of people ended up clicking on my face, going to my profile, and going down that entire string of kind of steps to hit my Facebook group. So people would be like, oh, who's this person who's very like, who just like keeps talking about marketing for games, clicked on my Facebook profile, went into, saw that, hey, saw my Facebook banner that said, hey, there's a group for people who want to market their Kickstarter games. And then they would click on that and there would be a link and they'd head to my Facebook group. And then they have to fill in this questionnaire and potentially leave their email. And then they enter into my group where I just talk about marketing for games. And a lot of people started doing this. So I started the group in April and now it's October and we're almost at 1,000 people. And on the back end, I have about 600 or 800, 600, probably about 600 emails of people who have come through and found my information this way, all organically with no paid ads at all. So what does this mean for you? So this whole thing can be replicable for you too, as a person who wants to launch on crowdfunding. It just depends on what your product is and who your kind of main avatar is for this particular product. So let's take an example. I think I've been talking about hiking stuff recently, so I'm just going to continue with that. Let's talk about travel, right? Let's talk about travel because I love traveling. I know we can't travel right now, but I love traveling. I've been to about 40 countries around the world now, actually. Yeah. So what was I saying? Okay. Yeah. So I was saying, let's talk about like a travel product. If you are launching a travel backpack, like a super simple travel backpack where there's like 30 different pockets for all the different things that you're going to take to travel with, things like that. And you're like, okay, this is very different. You've done the market research, right? This is really different from everything else that's on the market. And I think a lot of people are going to like this. And so you've done your market research, you've talked to some people, and then they're like, oh, this is like an interesting idea. You should try like marketing it and see if that you can get some traction in like on a big way, right? So what you would do from a product standpoint is just take a look at who your end customers are and find groups that they would potentially be into. So with a travel product like this, you'd look into groups like digital nomad job groups, digital nomad learning groups, like One Backpack Travelers, or like Backpackers Unite, or like some whatever groups there are that are associated with backpacking and like minimalist backpacking, light backpacking, one backpack travel, things like that, right? Because there's a lot of different types of groups out there. And so you'd go in and start looking at the different conversations that people are having in these groups. Some of these groups have like tens of thousands of people. Some of these groups have like thousands, tens of thousands. There's a lot of people in groups like this. And so what I'd recommend doing is like going into these groups and seeing like what types of conversations they're having. Are they asking about new products? Are they asking for each other to recommend products? Are they talking about how-tos? Are they talking about where they're going to be going next and what the best places to travel are during certain times of day, right? So like just getting a feel of what these conversations are and seeing where you and your brand and your new product can add value, right? So for example, if you found a group that is interested in talking about gear with each other, talk about gear and how different gear work with each other, things like that. And you're like, okay, well, we're interested in travel gear and like backpacking travel gear. And I am making this cool new product that is about travel gear. And assuming you've done a lot of research before creating this backpack, right? I'm assuming you have a lot of information about all the different competitors, all the pros and cons of different competitors and how yours is much better than others, I would really recommend you start posting about kind of pros and cons that for the different bags that you've been researching, you know about, you understand, so that you can start adding value to people's conversations and people start noticing your name, understanding your name, and seeing what you're about. And more likely than not, people are going to click through on your name. And if you have something on your Facebook banner or Facebook, Facebook featured image, right? And if you have all this information on your wall, you're posting about your new product that's launching, things like that. If you have all this ready, when people are curious to like learn more about you because they love what you're talking about the pros and cons of different bags and things like that, they're going to click into your profile and be like, wow, this person knows their bag stuff and they're actually creating a new product that meets all my needs. And they're going to just follow that train down the line to wherever you want them to go, whether it's a landing page to capture their email, whether it's a Facebook group just to talk about your particular product, whatever it is, right? You just have to make sure that there's a cohesive funnel that people can follow all the way through from knowing who you are, finding out what you're doing, and actually joining whatever group or whatever email list that you want them to join at the end of the line. And so this is applicable for every single thing up there. It's applicable for me as like a consultant for crowdfunding, as a coach for crowdfunding. It's applicable for you as a product designer. It's applicable for any new product launch. If you have the time to really spend on making these relationships. There's a lot of tricks moving forward too. Not tricks, but like lots of tactics moving forward too in order to really, really engage with people in this way and make sure that your organic relationships are, kind of continue to kind of flourish rather than just kind of die on the side. And, I can go really deep into this. Like, for example, talking about like one-on-one conversations and what happens through those one-on-one conversations on Facebook. Talk about things like how to actually set your friends list so that the posts actually show to people who you want it to show. So there's all these different things with organic marketing, but the basics of organic marketing, especially on a platform like Facebook, which I think is very, very ripe right now for people to just really use to find their right audience for a crowdfunding campaign, is that you just need to make sure that you know who your audience is so you can go into the right groups to start talking to them, to start providing value, to start providing just like conversation points that they're interested in, and making sure that your profile is set up in order to harness that attention and harness that energy so that people will be able to, follow what they're interested in you and go to be, get their information, leave their information with you so that they can keep conversing with you and keep knowing about your product and understanding your product and learning more about your product and potentially even support you when you launch. So that's kind of how organic marketing works. And I just wanted to talk about that with myself as an example first and kind of apply that, because that's a lot of people don't understand how it works, or they don't believe that it works. But honestly, it just takes time, and it takes just having the right systems in place. If you're interested in marketing for your board game, be sure to join me at meeplemarketing.com/group. That will redirect you to the place you need to go. If not, if you want more just in general crowdfunding information and fun crowdfunding knowledge and actual insights, like be sure to subscribe to the newsletter, and it's crushcrowdfunding.com/subscribe. And I'm sure to send you a fun little treat inside the first email that you get too. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Crush Crowdfunding podcast. If you enjoyed this episode or found it helpful in any way, be sure to leave a review so that other people will have an easier time finding this crowdfunding content. I hope that this podcast was helpful in your crowdfunding journey, and I can't wait for you to go out and crush it. Thanks for listening to the Crush Crowdfunding podcast at crushcrowdfunding.com. Tune in the same time next week for more ways to crush your launch.